Welcome back to Turning Point Tonight, where we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback. My name is Jobob. Thanks so much for sticking with us. It is time to check in with Monica Page, Turning Point's White House correspondent. Monica, tell us what's going on at the White House today. I heard the world's coolest dictator, self-described by the way, was at the White House. What did they talk about, and what else is going on?
Yeah, well, we had the El Salvador president, Bukele, here at the White House this morning around 11:35 a.m. Eastern time. He rolled up here to the White House to meet with President Trump exclusively in the Oval Office. I know that some members of the press were also able to go in as well. And then they had their private closed door meeting this afternoon as well, where the two discussed anything ranging from immigration and the prison systems to new high-tech biometrics that can monitor gang activity. Of course, we know El Salvador is very violent, but now ever since it implemented its prison systems, it's become one of the safest countries in the world. So we probably heard them speak about that as well. We also understand that tariffs were a topic of conversation. Of course, President Trump having that base 10% on El Salvador as well. I'm sure some room for negotiating there, given that El Salvador is trying to prosper economically, and given that it's been really attributing to the crime rate as well. Of course, President Trump, we also heard from him this afternoon, and he said that it's cheaper to send American criminals, if that were the case, to these El Salvador prisons rather than expanding our own prison system here at home. So, weighing that as well, what the future could look like for these violent gang members as deportations continue. We also know Bitcoin was probably a topic of conversation behind closed doors as well. Back in 2021, El Salvador was the first country to roll out and start using Bitcoin. So, of course, expanding that as well technologically. I know President Trump is really big into the whole Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, so we understand that that could have been the topic. But they spoke for quite some time because the El Salvador president left here at the White House pretty recently, 2 p.m. Eastern time. He rolled out, so he spent a good chunk of time here at the White House, and it sounds like really everything was on the table as far as conversations go.
Yeah, that is super interesting. Kind of shifting topics here. We saw during President Trump's first term a bunch of the national champions or the NBA champions or whoever say, no, we're not going to visit the White House. That seems to have changed. A bunch of the big sports teams have come through the White House. Today is no different. Who's going to be meeting with President Trump today?
Yep, we have the 2025 football champs, college champs, the Ohio State University here this afternoon. On the South Lawn, they've got a big ceremony welcoming them to the White House. We recently saw the Los Angeles Dodgers here, the MLB team here at the White House. We've seen the Florida Panthers here, the hockey team here at the White House as well. We're going to expect to see, Florida State, the Florida Gators here also at the White House since winning March Madness. Of course, they'll also be here. That will be TBD when they'll be coming here. But yeah, President Trump is a big sports fan. He loves his UFC shows as well and his fights that he goes to often. So he was just there over the weekend. So we can definitely expect to see more sports teams here at the White House in the coming months. But yeah, he loves it here, and it's funny to watch him go from welcoming foreign leaders to shifting to college teams or professional sports teams and welcoming them here. So he can do it all, like you've previously said, Jobob.
Yeah, it is. It's great to get the fact that just go see the president. It doesn't matter who the president is. Put your politics aside. Go see it. And it's great to see sports teams doing that again. Monica Page, Turning Point's White House correspondent. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Always good to check in with Turning Point White House correspondent Monica Page. Remember a couple years ago, not even really all that long ago, when the libs were like, buy a Tesla or else you hate the environment. And now people are saying, if you own a Tesla, you're a fascist. Well, one of the people that did buy a Tesla to quote unquote save the environment was AOC. It was very highly publicized. She got a brand new Tesla Model 3, and everybody on the left applauded her for quote unquote saving the environment. Well, now, considering the fact that owning a Tesla quote unquote makes you a fascist, which of course is not true, but that's what the libs love to say, the question is, does AOC still have her Tesla? Let's bring back our panel, Kendall Bailey and Steve Kuclo. Guys, I'm going to play you this video. AOC was stopped in the halls of Congress the other day and asked point blank, hey, do you still own the Tesla? We'll play her answer and I'll get you what you guys think. Does she own it or does she not own it? Go ahead and play that.
Congresswoman, do you still have your Tesla? Pardon? I was just wondering if you still have your Tesla.
For security reasons, I'm not commenting.
Now, I don't want to downplay security reasons at all. Like, I get that everybody should be secure regardless of what they think. But at the same time, That was a pretty big non-answer. Kendall, what do you think? Does AOC still have the coolest car on the market, or did she sell it for some virtue signal?
I really wish she had said something like, guys, why are we making this a political stint? Because
Mm.
now it just looks like they care less about the environment and it's more important to like trash the environment now, but at least you're not a fascist. I want to remind people that she's saying like, I don't want to disclose if I have one or not because I don't want someone vomiting on it, someone sticking their hand down their pants up their booty and wiping poop on it, and I don't want someone keying it. Like that's disgusting. That's what we're dealing with right here. And they have made it so political, and I wish just one of these liberals would say it's not political. I got this car because it's a phenomenal car. It's great for the environment. I happen to love it. Oh, and by the way, there's cameras on it. Why are we forgetting that there's cameras all over these cars?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, it really was a missed opportunity, I feel like, for her to say, look, guys, Tesla still is a quote unquote green energy car, whether or not you think cobalt being mined from third world countries is a good idea, but that's a different conversation for a different time. But AOC, yeah, was a huge proponent of Tesla until all of a sudden Elon Musk wanted to save the American taxpayers' money. Steve, let me get your comments on this. Do you think AOC still owns her Tesla?
I think that's a hard yes. I think that's a hard yes for them, for her to kind of dodge the question. I would have no problem. I guess if she's really trying to leverage the political stance on it, which is whatever, I'm sure she's got plenty of security around her all the time that she's not worried about security, like she says. But, for the United States automobile manufacturers like GM, Ford, the standard big three, they're really happy because, hey, all the gas-powered vehicles sales might start picking up if everybody's ditching Tesla. But I think for them to kind of boycott their whole green initiative and now say we need to ditch one of the major electric car manufacturers now is just completely, I guess it's liberal logic's the only thing you could say.
Yeah, Steve, sounds like AOC is being a silly Billy, but I repeat myself. Another thing that libs are going to be mad about, not because it's not a good idea, but because President Trump is a proponent of it, so their reactionary response will be, oh, this is terrible, is daylight savings. President Trump endorsed Rick Scott's bill to lock the clocks in the current daylight savings time. Whether this is a good idea or a bad idea, personally, I would not like to have to change my clocks twice a year because it's just annoying. But whether or not it's a good or bad idea, I kind of think that the lib states, if it passes, will say, well, this is a Trump thing and we're not going to do it. We're going to keep changing our clocks. And the political edge of it will be the main talking point. Steve, what are your thoughts? Is this a good idea? Should we do it? Is President Trump in the right here? What's the whole idea around daylight savings time?
Well, I think you nailed it. If President Trump said, we found a cure for cancer, they would probably boycott that as well. Looking at this from a health standpoint, and as a health practitioner myself and working with a lot of high-performing people and people's really, wellness, that's the new, I think people have really taken control of their health since COVID. And I see a lot of things that I try to help people on, and sleep is one of the biggest components when it comes to people's health. By a lot of times when these time changes happen, especially the spring forward, when people lose an hour of sleep, there's about a 20 to 25% increase in heart attack chances. You see a lot of issues. There's also some studies that have shown that people that have court cases around the time change, the judges are less favorable to judge on your side going through this because of the lack of sleep. So this is something that a lot of people don't really think about. I mean, yes, they feel that I'm losing an hour of sleep, but the health impact is actually pretty great. So it usually takes your body a few weeks to kind of get back into a rhythm, fix its circadian rhythm with the sun and the way the clocks are running, because we do run on a 24-hour clock pretty much, the way our bodies are programmed. So losing the sleep does affect us, mentally, physically, and obviously, studies show that increase in heart attack risk goes way up. So I think it is good that we do fix our clocks, not have the time changes. Some people do travel a lot when they're jumping time zones, et cetera. But when it comes to, what we do day to day, I think it's going to be good that we fix the clocks.
Those are some very interesting and compelling arguments that I don't think that I've heard yet. Kendall, on kind of like the personal side, right? You being a mom, and I'm sure you drop your kids off at school, pick them up. One of the biggest protests against changing daylight savings, or sorry, keeping it to where you jump clock back and forth, it's like, oh no, we're gonna have to take our kids to school in the dark. How much of a factor does that play in your everyday life? And I know you're just a small sample size, but I'm curious, is that like an argument that makes sense to you?
It's definitely inconvenient standing at the bus and it's dark outside. However, I agree with Steve where like health benefit wise, we just need to stay on one of them. And I really don't even care which one. I don't know which one this is even for. But I feel like regardless, we need to pick one and stay on it. My biggest thing is my business partner lives in Arizona, and that time difference when we are like 3 hours difference is just heavy for me. And so that's a personal thing. But again, back to just the health of it. I really think we need to pick a time and stay on it. It's not worth going back and forth.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially after hearing Steve's arguments. I think I've now just chosen a side. Get rid of it altogether. I was on that side beforehand, but that was just the inconvenience component. But the entire thing as a whole, that makes a lot of sense. Kendall Bailey, Steve Kuclo, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having.
Thank you. Coming up next here on Turning Point tonight, we've got an awesome clip from Alex Clark's Culture Apothecary podcast. Then we've got one of our favorite segments where we read a bunch of emails, including the guy who really, really doesn't like us. And then Charlie Kirk's going to take us out. All that and more coming up next on Turning Point tonight. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.